And in fact, our countries aren't just neighbors, we are really true friends. And I've always believed that we should nurture that friendship, progressive to progressive, because united we could accomplish a great deal together. Now, I'm really here to speak about one of the areas where we must work together. And it has to do with the growing gap which is occurring in our societies as a result of the way we are structuring, and I say we, I really mean they, are restructuring our trade and economic relationships in a fashion that is fundamentally unfair, that is leaving millions and millions of people behind, that is not sustainable, and that ultimately benefits the very, very few and the multinational corporate interests that promote this kind of trade. An example, of course, is NAFTA, which has reached the news headlines recently. But NAFTA is only important because it actually represents a structure of trading relationships which is now being trumpeted as the way in which the world economy should be permitted to develop. And I simply want to say we must not let it develop in that fashion. We must let it develop for working people who make up the economy, no matter what country we're talking about. Let me tell you that in Canada, people are working longer and harder each and every day. A study was done by one of our progressive economic groups, very similar to the groups that have put this organization together over your years of a successful meeting. We found that Canadians are, and the average Canadian family is working 250 hours more per year, the equivalent of 5 additional full-time weeks of work, and yet they're not earning any more money. In fact, in many cases, they're slipping backwards. They're having less time with their family. They're more stressed. They have second and third jobs. They can't pay the rent at the end of the month. They're using their credit cards to pay their mortgages, and they are feeling left out of the so-called economic boom that characterized recent years in our country. Now, this is unfair and wrong, because it's their hard work that builds the economy and allows the profits such as they are to be achieved by our banks and our oil companies. Nearly 2/3 of Canadians, when you ask them, will tell you we're not benefiting by what's going on in the economy today. In fact, our families are finding it tougher and tougher, and half of Canadians today will tell you that they think they're 1 or 2 paychecks away from not being able to pay the rent or the mortgage. And that, for any family, is called living on the edge, and it shouldn't be happening. People who thought that they were comfortable, who imagined a better life for their children, who described themselves as middle class, are now finding themselves incredibly squeezed and really paying a price. Add to that the anxieties about climate change and what that holds for the next generation or the generation after that. These are deep anxieties. The costs of health care that are rising, particularly those parts that aren't covered by our Medicare program in Canada, like prescription drugs. The costs of education, skyrocketing tuition, student debt, these kinds of issues that are weighing on families and really denying kids and young people a future before they even get started. So this is why Canadians are becoming more anxious, and yet they look out and they see some people doing so well. We have one bank that got involved, overexposed itself to the subprime mortgage situation here, and had to write down a considerable amount of hundreds of millions of dollars. That bank CEO was rewarded by a $9 million bonus. I just try to think of how many workers on an assembly line would get a bonus for performance that resembled anything like that. In fact, our workers are working longer and harder and doing very well, but then they get thrown out of work when unfair trade deals result in their jobs being lost. That's not right. And it's not right that the top 100 CEOs in my country make 218 times more than the average Canadian. They earn in the first 9 hours and 33 minutes of January the 1st what the average Canadian makes in an entire year. This kind of inequality has got to be addressed, and there are so many solutions to help us address them. I was just blown away by Van Jones' remarks this morning about green jobs and how we can retrofit and renovate and weatherize our buildings from one end of the country to the other. And our party is advocating that we take every building in Canada and renovate it from top to bottom and pay for it out of the energy, the oil and the gas that we don't have to purchase, and create jobs everywhere in Canada. And that's the kind of vision that you share. But I have to say that the recent controversy about NAFTA certainly has us concerned. But I want to say to Senators Obama and Clinton, we are pleased that you raised the issue of the need to reform those trade deals, to make them more fair, to establish labor standards that really work, to establish environmental standards that really work. And you have Canadians on your side and ready to work with you as we reach across the border to build fair and sustainable trade. In fact, I wrote to the senators the moment they spoke out and said that we have an historic opportunity here to build across the border a movement of working people for the kind of society that our kids dream of and hope to construct. My friends, I simply want to close by saying to have the opportunity to be with progressive Americans is inspiring to me. What's going on here and across your great country as you rethink the direction that has been followed in recent years, it parallels what we're doing in our country. And I want to bring to you that message of hope from millions of Canadians who wish you well in your project of building a new future. And we want to be part, working with you, of building a new future for all people on this planet. I believe we can get it done. Don't let them tell you it can't be done. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, mes chers amis.